Mauritania is a country that few people know much about, but it hides some truly incredible and sometimes disturbing realities. Imagine a place where vast stretches of desert dominate the landscape, where modern-day slavery still exists, and where women are traded in marriage markets. And if that's not curious enough, there are even villages where a significant percentage of the population is born blind due to a mysterious genetic condition. Today, we'll explore Mauritania in detail, revealing 10 surprising and little-known facts about this country that straddles both the Arab world and sub-Saharan Africa. Be sure to stay with us until the end because one of the last facts may leave you speechless. If you're enjoying this content so far, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring you more fascinating insights into countries and cultures around the world. Welcome to World Marvels. 10 Women's Dress Codes in Mauritania. Mauritania, officially known as the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, sits at a unique cultural and geographical crossroad between the Arab world and sub-Saharan Africa. It's a country of striking contrasts, not just in its geography but also in its traditions and customs, particularly when it comes to women's dress. The dress code for women in Mauritania is heavily influenced by Islamic traditions and the desert environment. Women are expected to wear modest clothing that covers most of their bodies, and this is not just a religious requirement, but also a practical one given the harsh desert climate. Long flowing robes, loose skirts, and headscarves are common. For many Mauritanian women, covering their hair with a veil is a sign of respect for their culture and religion. In fact, it's rare to see a woman in public without a headscarf, especially in more conservative rural areas. This attire helps protect against the intense desert sun, while also adhering to the religious customs of the country. However, it's important to note that while dress codes are strict, they also reflect a deep sense of identity and cultural pride. For men, the dress is also conservative, though less strict compared to women. Most men wear long tunics known as boubous, which are practical in the hot climate, and trousers are generally worn in both casual and formal settings. Shorts are seldom worn in public, as they are considered inappropriate, particularly in formal or religious contexts. Visitors are advised to respect these customs when traveling to Mauritania. 9. The desert climate of Mauritania. Mauritania's geography is dominated by the Sahara Desert, which covers over 90% of the country's landmass. This vast, arid environment has a profound impact on life in Mauritania, shaping everything from settlement patterns to economic activities. The country's desert climate is characterized by extremely high daytime temperatures, often exceeding 40 degrees Celsius, 104 degrees Fahrenheit, while nighttime temperatures can plummet, especially in the desert's interior regions. Rain is scarce, with many regions receiving less than 100 millimeters of rainfall per year. This makes farming incredibly difficult and places immense pressure on water resources. The lack of water and arable land has made Mauritania one of the most arid and agriculturally challenging countries in the world. Despite these environmental hardships, Mauritania's people have adapted to these conditions for centuries. They rely on deep wells and underground water sources to sustain their communities and livestock. Traditional nomadic life, which once defined Mauritanian society, is slowly giving way to more urbanized lifestyles, but the harsh desert environment still plays a central role in the lives of its people. Many Mauritanians are herders, moving their livestock from place to place in search of grazing land. As the desert continues to expand, known as desertification, the pressure on these traditional ways of life becomes even greater. 8. The struggles of Nouakchott, Mauritania's growing capital. Nouakchott, the capital city of Mauritania, is a fascinating case study of rapid urbanization. What began as a modest fishing village has transformed into a bustling city with a population of over 1 million people. This dramatic population growth has presented the city with numerous challenges, especially when it comes to infrastructure. Like many rapidly growing cities in developing countries, Nouakchott has struggled to keep pace with the demand for basic services such as water, electricity, and waste management. The city's infrastructure is not equipped to handle such a large population. Water shortages are common, especially during the hot summer months, and many of the city's roads are unpaved and poorly maintained, making transportation difficult. Despite these challenges, Nouakchott remains the political and economic heart of Mauritania. The fishing industry, which once sustained the small village, has now expanded into a major source of revenue for the country, with the city's port handling much of the nation's fish exports. Urban poverty is another major issue in Nouakchott. As rural families move to the city in search of better opportunities, many find themselves living in slums or makeshift housing on the outskirts of the city. These communities often lack access to basic services like clean water and sanitation, leading to poor living conditions. While the government has made efforts to improve infrastructure, the sheer speed of urbanization has made it difficult to keep up. 7. Rural life in Mauritania. While Nouakchott may be the face of Mauritania's rapid modernization, the vast majority of the country's land is rural and sparsely populated. Life in rural Mauritania is drastically different from that in the capital. In the rural areas, infrastructure is even more limited, with many communities lacking paved roads, schools, and healthcare facilities. The majority of people living in rural areas rely on agriculture and livestock for their livelihoods. However, the extreme climate and frequent droughts make farming a challenging and often unreliable source of income. In addition to the lack of infrastructure, access to clean water is a major issue for rural communities. Many people must travel long distances to collect water from wells, and the water they do obtain is often of poor quality. These challenges have led to high levels of poverty and food insecurity in rural areas. Despite these hardships, rural Mauritania is also home to rich cultural traditions and a deep sense of community. Many families continue to practice traditional crafts such as weaving and pottery, and the sense of hospitality in these regions is renowned. Visitors to rural Mauritania are often struck by the warmth and generosity of the people, even in the face of such difficult living conditions. 6. Economic realities of Mauritania. Mauritania's economy is largely dependent on natural resources, with fishing and mining being two of the most important sectors. The country is rich in minerals, particularly iron ore, which makes up a significant portion of its exports. In fact, Mauritania is one of the world's largest exporters of iron ore, and this resource has helped sustain the country's economy for decades. In recent years, the discovery of offshore oil and gas reserves has raised hopes that Mauritania's economy could be on the verge of a major transformation. However, despite these valuable natural resources, poverty remains widespread in Mauritania. The wealth generated from these industries has not trickled down to the average citizen, and many people continue to live in extreme poverty, particularly in rural areas. The gap between the rich and the poor is stark, and economic inequality is a significant issue. Fishing also plays a key role in the economy, particularly in coastal regions like Nouadhibou. Mauritania's waters are some of the richest fishing grounds in the world, and the country exports large quantities of fish, particularly to the European Union. However, the fishing industry faces challenges, including overfishing and competition from foreign fleets. Many Mauritanians who rely on fishing for their livelihoods feel that they are being squeezed out by large, foreign-owned companies. 5. Modern-day slavery in Mauritania. Perhaps one of the most shocking realities of life in Mauritania is the persistence of modern-day slavery. Although slavery was officially abolished in 1981, it remains a deeply entrenched issue in the country, with some estimates suggesting that up to 20% of the population is still living in some form of servitude. These individuals are often born into slavery, with little hope of escaping the cycle. They work without pay, often in brutal conditions, and are treated as property by their masters. The Mauritanian government has taken steps to address the issue, passing laws that criminalize slavery and launching awareness campaigns. However, enforcement of these laws has been inconsistent, and many slaves continue to live in fear of retribution if they attempt to escape. Slavery in Mauritania is often tied to ethnic divisions, with many of the country's slaves coming from the Haratan ethnic group, which has historically been marginalized and oppressed. Activist groups, both local and international, are working to combat slavery in Mauritania. They are raising awareness of the issue and pressuring the government to do more to protect the rights of slaves. Despite the challenges, there have been some successes, with more slaves escaping and gaining their freedom in recent years. However, the fight against slavery in Mauritania is far from over, and it remains a dark stain on the country's history. 4. Mauritania's growing environmental crisis. Environmental issues pose a serious threat to Mauritania's future. The country is highly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, particularly desertification, which is the process by which fertile land turns into desert. As the Sahara Desert expands, it encroaches on agricultural lands, making it even more difficult for farmers to grow crops and sustain livestock. This, in turn, leads to increased food insecurity and poverty, particularly in rural areas. Frequent droughts have exacerbated the problem, leaving many communities without enough water to sustain their crops or livestock. As a result, more and more people are abandoning their farms and moving to urban areas like Nouakchott in search of better opportunities. However, as we've already seen, the cities are ill-equipped to handle this influx, leading to overcrowded slums and poor living conditions. The government is working with international organizations to address these environmental challenges. Reforestation projects and efforts to improve water management are underway, but progress has been slow. The scale of the environmental crisis is vast, and without significant intervention, the situation is likely to worsen in the coming years. 3. The blindness epidemic in Tiny. In the remote desert village of Tiny, something unusual is happening. Approximately 1 in 10 people is born blind. This condition is not caused by accidents or diseases, but appears to be linked to a genetic mutation that affects the local population. Scientists and medical researchers believe that the blindness is caused by a hereditary condition known as retinitis pigmentosa, which affects the retina and leads to progressive vision loss. The high rate of blindness in Tiny is believed to be the result of generations of intermarriage within this small, isolated community. In areas like Tiny, where the population is small and isolated from the rest of the country, rare genetic mutations can spread more easily. Researchers are studying the community to better understand the condition and explore potential treatments. But for now, blindness remains a significant challenge for many families in the village. 2. The divorced women's market. One of the more curious cultural practices in Mauritania is the existence of markets where divorced women are essentially traded for marriage. In a country where online dating doesn't exist and social interactions between men and women are limited by strict cultural norms, these markets serve as a place where divorced women and men looking for new partners can meet. What's even more surprising is that many Mauritanian men prefer to marry divorced women, believing that they are more experienced in managing households and caring for husbands. This practice is driven by social and economic factors, but it also highlights the deeply rooted gender inequalities in the country. While some women enter these markets voluntarily, others are forced into marriages by their families, often in exchange for dowries. This practice represents a serious human rights issue, as many women are treated as commodities rather than individuals with their own rights and freedoms. 1. Life expectancy and health challenges. One of the most concerning indicators of life in Mauritania is the country's low life expectancy, which stands at just 46 years. This reflects the many challenges that Mauritanians face in their daily lives, from lack of access to clean water and nutritious food to inadequate healthcare services. In rural areas, where healthcare facilities are scarce or non-existent, treatable conditions often become deadly. Many Mauritanians also work in physically demanding jobs, such as fishing or herding livestock, which take a toll on their bodies over time. Combined with the extreme desert climate, these factors contribute to long-term health problems. Additionally, the lack of education about health and disease prevention means that many people are unaware of how to protect themselves from common illnesses. If you found this video insightful, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating content like this. What do you think about the surprising realities of life in Mauritania? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your opinions. Thank you for watching, and remember, every comment, like, and share helps us continue to bring you these important stories. See you in the next video.